I am your host, Shannon Ray, and thank you very much for tuning in to this week's episode of Paranormal Minds. I am joined this evening with a very special guest, L.A Marzulli. He is an author of the Nephilim Trilogy. The Nephilim Trilogy made the best CBA bestsellers list and continues to thrill readers a decade after the first book in the series was published. Marzulli received an honorary doctorate from the Pacific International University for his work on the Nephilim Trilogy. Marzulli is also the author of the nonfiction work Politics, Prophecy, and the Supernatural. The book packs a hard-hitting expose of how the current political landscape may bring about ancient biblical prophecies, which then may trigger supernatural events that are foretold in the book of Daniel and Revelation. The Alien Interviews features 17 personal, intense interviews with people who have had directly been involved with UFO phenomenon. The book was written for a skeptic with various wide worldviews presented as to what these phenomena may be. Marzulli teamed up with a film producer, Richard Shaw, to create the Watchers series, which you guys might know him from. The first offering, Watchers 1, UFOs Are Real, is in its 5th printing, while Watchers 2, Signs in the Heaven and Earth, may be the only DVD that offers biblical answers to the off-the-charts weather activity that we are experiencing, with all the tornadoes, earthquakes of 7.0 and greater, flooding, riots, and the rise of lawlessness. It's not business as usual. Recently, Shaw and Marzulli completed Watchers 3, Fingerprints of the Supernatural, which covers the two sun phenomena, the Arab Spring, the Shroud of Turin, and the Torah Codes. Marzulli's latest book, The Cosmic Chess Match, was released in the fall of 2011. The book covers an ongoing cosmic battle that has been waged in an unseen dimension for millennia, and according to Marzulli, it is about to spill over into our dimension soon. Marzulli has lectured on this fascinating subject, presenting his exhaustive research at conferences and churches, as well as appearances and interviews on numerous national radios and television programs. Without further ado, I would like to welcome L.A Marzulli. How are you doing?
Doing good, Shannon. Thanks for having me on. And by the way, I really need to update that bio. There's 2 other books that have come out since then, and we're up to Watchers 7 has been released. In fact, Watchers 7, a shameless plug here, Watchers 7 won the Best Picture and People's Choice Awards at the UFO convention or UFO Congress in Phoenix, Arizona last weekend. So that was really a cool honor for us, and we're excited, and we're actually working on Watchers 8, so we're very busy.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And it's not a shameless plug at all. Like, that is exactly what we're here to do, to spread the word and to get your word out too. So, but I kind of wanted to start off with, before the Watchers and before it all, what kind of got you started, in your journey and the things that you now do?
Well, I was an agnostic. What I mean by that is at 13, I left the Catholic Church. I felt like there was nothing there but dead ritual, and there was no supernatural or spiritual connection for me in the Catholic Church. And that led me sort of on a quest. I remember reading Eric von Daniken's book, Chariots of the Gods, and that book changed my life, along with Carlos Castaneda. And you remember, this is in the 60s. This is like, 64 to 1970, where all that Eastern mysticism was coming in to the Americas. And the Beatles were, in some ways, responsible for promulgating some of that. I mean, certainly not just up to the Beatles. I mean, it was everywhere. But they really put it on the map in some ways. And so, gurus and Eastern mysticism and third eyes being open, all that became very much the in thing and the vogue thing to do. And I found myself, after the death of my girlfriend when I was 18, and she was 16, she died in a hit-and-run automobile accident. And that changed everything. All of a sudden, I was faced with death and really didn't know how to deal with it. Who is?
Yeah.
And it's death is never convenient. And that set me on a quest, and all I could look at was Eastern mysticism. So at that point, I was with a guru for about 3 years and gave up everything, joined the ashram, became a renunciate, and got nowhere. I had, my third eye was open, and I astral projected and had spirit guides and stuff would happen. But all I can tell you is it didn't change the same, or it didn't change that stuff in me, which I wanted to get changed. That wasn't being affected. And I left the guru and sort of became an agnostic for about 5 years. Pretty much full-time card-carrying agnostic, leave God or whoever he may be out of the picture. And in 1980, I was 30 years old, and I had been doing a lot of things. I had led a very, I don't mind saying, a debauched life.
No, it's not.
And what I mean by that is, I had living girlfriends and smoked and smoked pot and did other drugs and, had gurus and was in a cult practicing pagan, for lack of a better description. And I remember reading this book by David Hunt, who died last year. And at the end of it, there's this little prayer thing that you can, say to Jesus, the come to Jesus moment that no one likes to talk about. And I had no idea if this was even real or not. I had no idea whether he was real or not. Remember, I'm not in a church service. I'm not in a building. I'm just sitting in my easy chair. There's no one around. Got a book in my lap. There's a little invitation at the end of the book, the come to Jesus moment. And I just went, this is what I said. I said, look, I don't know whether you're real or not, but if you are, I've tried everything and nothing works. So come into my life. I mean, that was it. That's all it was. There was no, hallelujah, nothing like that at all. Okay, it was just this off-the-hip prayer, and I had a Paul on the road to Damascus experience. My life has never been the same. It's 34 years ago, and all I can tell people that sort of smirk and scoff at that, you have no idea what I'm talking about unless you've been there. Trust me.
Yeah.
No idea. It's not what you think it is. He's not who you think he is. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, you turn on some of the religious stations and, if you'll give me now $2,000 for your seed faith offering, and Jesus will come and solve all your problems, and that's what he'll do for $2,000. And you just look at that and you just go, oh my gosh, and you want to just scream and run out of the room, mm-hmm. right? They're just hucksters. They're modern day hucksters. And these are the same guys, in my opinion, with all due respect, when Yeshua, his name is in the Hebrew, Yeshua, when Jesus makes that chord and he goes into the temple and he drives out the money changers,
yeah.
Woo-hoo! Is there really any difference between those guys and the hucksters on TV fleecing the widows out of their last penny for some, miracle holy water or magic prayer cloth? I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah,
that's not the guy I'm talking about, okay? Yeah. That's not who I'm talking about. And so the guidebook of the supernatural, or what is called the Bible, has a most amazing stories of how people interface with what we would call in modern vernacular the supernatural or the spiritual. Mm-hmm. And it's not, again, there are certain things, for instance, you don't want to open yourself up to channeling or remote viewing. Why? Because you're dealing with an entity that you don't know and you can't vet. How does one know whether your channeling is benevolent or malevolent? Just because you say some little prayer, baloney. We're instructed in the guidebook not to mess with this. Definitely not to mess with this. And there's a reason for it, because these entities are highly malevolent. They're also extremely intelligent, and they know how to deceive people. I deal with people all the time who have opened that door and now can't close it and are trying to get out. So that's just a little bit about how I came to do what I do now, which is full-time, and it's been 34 years and counting.
Now, with being the author and things, I can obviously tell that you're very passionate about, how you feel. Did becoming an author, did that kind of transition from that passion, wanting to get the word out and wanting to spread some information?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think it's really important that people understand the season that we're living in on this planet. It's unprecedented. I mean, look at the weather. Look at what's going on. I mean, I've written about all this. The Watcher series talks about it. Look at the increase of UFO sightings from 500 a month to 2,000 a month in less than a 6-month period of time. That's unbelievable. Look at this. Let me get the prop.
I love props.
This is a cast of a elongated skull, which we took a cast out of Paracas, Peru. This is obviously not the real deal.
Yeah.
This is a cast of a skull. Hello in there. But we made a cast of this thing, and it only has one parietal plate. We believe this is genetic manipulation by an outside agency. And recently there's been preliminary DNA testing done on some of the samples taken from there. And we got, Brian Forrester got the results from those tests, and basically it just said that the mitochondrial DNA does not match anything we have in the database at all. And that the geneticist looked at this and said, in his opinion, so far, we are looking at some sort of a hybrid which is not human, which, you know, welcome to my world.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point of a Nephilim. That's exactly what we were hoping to hear, hoping to discover. Now, remember, a word of caution, none of this is conclusive. These are preliminary evidentiary findings. I have no idea. You know, we have not been able to present samples. We're working with an archaeologist in Peru to get those samples approved and then sent to labs in the United States. Mm-hmm. So this is something that Brian, I guess, or someone else had put into motion, but this is what the geneticists found, and we're just repeating it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So in reference to the elongated, you know, the giant elongated skeleton, the head, I do kind of want to touch on that because I know a lot of skeptics say, you know, there is certain types of whether it is evolution or, you know, cultural things like where people bound their feet and they make like really tiny feet. Maybe there's a way that, you know, over time a certain culture, you know, elongated their skull, you know, like what do you have to, because that's kind of like skepticism I got when I looked into these kind of things. What do you have to say to that kind of ideology, I guess?
Well, first of all, most of these people are armchair quarterbacks. What I mean by that is they've never been in the field. They've never looked at the skulls themselves. They've looked at pictures. I've been to Paracas twice. I've walked the Chongos graveyard. I've been to the Lima Museum. You know, I've been to the sites, held the things. We brought a team of people. We measured the skulls. We looked at them. We weighed at them, or we weighed them. They've got between 25 and 30%, perhaps more, cranial capacity than a normal human skull. That's not normal. In other words, just because you elongate a skull, that you're just shaping it. You can't create a bigger brain mass from doing that. Mm-hmm. Some of these heads, obviously, were cradle-boarded. That's what the technique is called. They were cradle-boarded in infancy. It begs the question, why is a culture finding this elongated skull shape desirable? What motivates a culture to do this? And the answer to that may be found in the Paracas skulls, because we believe there's an outside agency manipulating the genome and creating basically a hybrid creature. I believe it's a Nephilim, which, going back again to the guidebook of the supernatural, i.e. the Bible, tells us fallen angels procreated with the women of earth and created this hybrid form known as the Nephilim. And this is why we're so anxious to get DNA samples up to this country where we can do the DNA testing on them and find out what it is we're really looking at. So far, even without the DNA evidence and other evidence that I have found independently of Peru from pictures and going into archives and looking at old photographs, this was widespread. It was certainly through the Americas. Many Native Americans talked about a race of red-haired giants which preceded them to this country. This all fits the paradigm, the idea that the Nephilim were on the earth and then went into Europe, and from Europe they came across into the Americas and also sailed across the Atlantic into South America and settled in there. These people, whatever they were, these hybrid beings, in my opinion, were more than likely worshipped as godmen to the local inhabitants. And they may have had supernatural powers. They may have been able to read your mind, or perhaps freeze you. We don't know, because none of them are walking around, at least not now, in that form. But the Paracas people are very strange because they show up about 3,000 to 3,500 years ago, and then they just simply vanish. It's certainly enigmatic, and that's why we continue to explore and go down and see what is happening in Paracas. So, to the skeptic, unless you do your own research and you get out in the field, you're just sitting in your armchair, waving your finger and telling us, oh, well, that can't be because I know. Well, you don't know. You need to get out and you need to do some research, because cradle headboarding looks one way. Cradle headboarding does not create a skull without a sagittal suture and with only one parietal plate. That won't happen, all right? And, the anomalies go very deep, and that's why we're really trying to get the DNA evidence, which we don't have yet.
Yeah, well, that's completely understandable, and I'm really glad that you brought up the migration of these entities, because, that was leading into my next question about, why Peru? Why are these things really only kind of being found in Peru? Do you have, or maybe they're being found in other places and it's just not been, kind of mentioned by you?
Well, I will be revealing a site in the Americas which has been long since covered up. But what's interesting is there is photographic evidence, and I was able to get the photographic evidence, and I am looking at a photograph as we speak on my computer of an elongated head found in the Americas that we believe is not the result of cradle headboarding. There's also a very large skeletal remain, which we've had tested, which we believe is about 8.5 feet in length. There's also skeletons that have 6 fingers, and again, very large craniums, very odd-shaped craniums. And that's just in one site. These things are all over the Americas, and we've got proof of that. And in the upcoming book, and in Watchers 8, we'll be discussing it. And then in my series, or my next book in the series, On the Trail of a Nephilim, Volume 2, all these pictures will be available for people's perusal. And I think it's going to open some doors. I really do.
And I kind of have to ask this, with everything, even when I have like on a UFO guy and everything, and I just got to touch on it because I hear viewers put into the chat box and ask all the time, why is it like these smaller, like, because I've seen that stuff on the internet too, but it's like those smaller news sources, like, why is it that, and why is it not more people talking about it kind of deal? Because this is big stuff, like actually having samples. We're not talking about the mysterious Bigfoot and nobody's found a DNA sample. So why aren't more people talking about it?
Well, I think that the word's starting to get out. I think when On the Trail Volume 2 comes out, I think it'll create a huge buzz. We're hoping it does. What's interesting is I appeared for half an hour on Sid Roth's program, and that's Christian TV. But what's fascinating is almost 450,000 people have downloaded that half-hour interview on YouTube, and that's a lot of people, and it's going, and that interview is about 7 months old, and it's their most watched video in the history of Sid Roth's ministries. And I mean, that just tells you that people are interested. People are waking up to the fact that something has gone on in our past. We're not being told the truth. The truth has been obfuscated and hid from us. This blows holes, in my opinion. This blows holes in the Darwinian theory completely, and shows that there's an outside agency that's manipulating the human genome to its own ends, which we're not really sure of. What's interesting is we've tied this into the modern day abduction phenomena, implant phenomena, breeding program. We've interviewed in Watcher 7 Dr. David Jacobs, who he himself is written like 3 or 4 books on the abduction phenomena. And we asked him point blank, how do you feel about this? And Jacobs told us he despairs for the future because he believes that the breeding program has reached its conclusion, and now these hybrid beings are starting to become integrated into society. We have no proof of that yet, but what's interesting is we do have hardcore proof of the implants, and in Watcher 7 we trace a individual who has gone through the entire process. What I mean by that is X-rays, CAT scans, looking at the implant with a Gauss meter which registers magnetic field, taking a simple common stud finder, realizing that there's metal there, ultrasound test, and finally removal, which we filmed in Watchers 8. And then we take the implant, we go down to Seal Labs and examine it under a scanning electron microscope with an EDX feature, which tells us what it's made from. And this is hardcore science. This is what we're doing. I mean, we're in the field and we're doing it. We're spending our own money on research. trying to vet the stuff. We're not sitting there calling people fools and idiots because we disagree with them. You know, that's what we're called by people who disagree with us, but they don't do an ounce of research. They'll sit there in their ivory towers and point fingers and say, well, this can't be because I say so. Well, who are you to tell us what the truth really is? We're out in the field. You know, look, we in Watchers 8, we show the removal of an implant. You know, we started in Watchers 7, and again, CAT scans, X-rays, ultrasounds, we know it's there. In Watchers 8, we removed the thing in an operating theater. And some strange, really strange stuff happened when we were doing that. I won't tell you about it now, but I'll tell you about it maybe on a future show when Watchers 8 comes out. I mean really strange stuff that has to do with, you know, calling in a power that's greater than the power that was manipulating everything in that room. That's all I'll say. But it was really intense.
So, you know, none of this, honestly, I swear, is not going to offend me. Because I consider myself a very wide spectrum individual. I'm not necessarily one particular religion over the other because I don't know who's right. But I do love your work and your research because, to me, it has solid, you know, concrete. This is, you know, where we can go in this direction with this. But in the grand scheme of things, you know, what has been the purpose of any type of DNA or mutation like this and the crossbreeding and the doing of this to our species? What would have been the sole purpose and goal in the end?
Well, we are in a cosmic war, and when one begins to look at the entire historical record in that light, everything starts to become pretty clear that this war is raging in an unseen dimension and from time to time spills over into ours. It's between two players. They are listed, and they have been fighting and dueling against each other, like I said, literally for millennia. On one hand, we are told in the guidebook that we are made in the image and likeness of God. Everybody on this planet is made in his image, okay? On the other hand, we've got this fallen angelic being who's incredibly intelligent and extremely powerful. And he heads a rebellion of about 1/3 of the angelic host, which left their proper place, okay? Mm-hmm. And what he wants to do is to create man in his own image. And a lot of this is talked about in these ancient prophetic texts found, in the course, in the guidebook of the supernatural, which separates that book from any other on the planet. And it talks about in the days of Noah, it'll be like the days of Noah when I return, which begs the question, what differentiates the days of Noah from any other time in history? And it's the presence of the fallen angelic beings messing with the genome. And we see this all throughout history. When we go to Paracas, someone is messing with the genome. There's an outside agency. There's two choices you've got. It's either ET from Zeta Reticuli, like the ancient alien crowd wants us to believe, or it's interdimensional, and these are interdimensional beings, the fallen angelic host, which the Bible literally tells us exactly what was going on in Genesis and in other places, that these fallen angelic hosts came here, went into the women, and this offspring known as the Nephilim were on the earth.
Do you believe that certain people that maybe such as you or, you know, people who believe this more are more prone to have interaction with these type of interdimensional, you know, coincidences?
No,
or do you
not at all.
Anybody?
I don't have any interactions with these guys. I don't want to have any interactions with these guys. Are you kidding me? That's the last thing I want.
Do you believe that certain, like, mediums and, you know, things like that say they can tap into, like, certain spiritual aspects? Or could they possibly be tapping into these guys?
That's exactly who they're tapping into. No matter what they say, they're entering into what I call the second heaven. And that's a place where we are told, absolutely, you do not want to go. You do not want to engage any entity from that particular area. The lower astral, occultists will call it the lower astral. Other people will call it the second heaven. You don't want to go there. You don't want to entertain entities from there. They're all too willing. You know, read Graham Hancock's Supernatural, who takes ayahuasca. Where does he go? He goes to the second heaven. They are all too willing to befriend you and show you all sorts of stuff and bedazzle you, because that's what they'll do, and they'll suck you in. But you can't trust them because they lie. Look, at the end of Watcher 7, I quote from Jacques Vallée, who's in some ways the founding fathers of ufology. And Vallée says that these entities, wherever they're from or whoever they are, seem to lie and do so habitually. And that's what they do. So, when you lie to someone, you're deliberately obfuscating the truth, hiding the truth, and covering it up with a lie to mislead someone. See, that's not a good thing. Mm-hmm. That's not a good thing. And that's what these entities do. And they do so habitually.
So I got to kind of ask a big question here and try to bring it all back around a little bit. So when we die, because we're not one of these entities and we don't seem to be anything, more special than a science lab experiment almost. So when we die, what happens to us essentially? Are we just kind of shot back into like some kind of like hand and chain gang stuff with them, or how does it go?
No, I don't believe that at all. I believe the essence of Shannon Ray remains intact. I don't believe in reincarnation. I think that whole theory is one of the most hopeless things I've ever read in my whole life. And there's not one person on the planet that you can point to that's evolved. They never exist, right? So let me see, we've got billions of people on the planet, and there's not somebody that's like walking on water or healing the sick. It doesn't exist. Well, everybody here is broken. And everybody on this planet needs to become unbroken. And there is a way to do that. The essence of you, Shannon Ray, the essence of L.A. Marzulli, will pass from this world, and it will go to another place. And depending on what we do and what we have rejected or accepted, that depends on what happens to us.
Mm-hmm. So would you still consider? I mean, I gotta ask. Would you still consider yourself, Christian, Catholic, anything like that, or how would you denote your religious aspects currently?
I am a spirit-filled, born from above Christian. What I mean by that is that I have a connection with the living God, and he will speak to me through various ways. Through his written word, sometimes I will get a very strong thought impression. Other times, someone will be saying something, and I get a little tap on the shoulder. Most of the time, it's little nudges, and I've learned to, we call it minding the checks. I've learned to know his voice and mind the checks when I get them. And because of what I do, I put on the armor of Yeshua every day, because I am in a spiritual battle. And without that armor, I wouldn't make it, because I'm attacked, not constantly, but quite often. So I put on the armor, and I walk in that armor on a daily basis, because our enemies, my enemy, are not carnal, are not things I can see. The enemy that I fight are wickedness in high places, and entities that are incredibly malevolent. They are unseen. They are powers and principalities. They are the rulers of this world, unseen rulers of this world. And that's sometimes what I go up against, not one-on-one, but I will feel that energy, and I have to pray my way out of it, essentially.
So I do want to kind of backtrack. I know you briefly mentioned Noah, but in one of your books, On the Trail of the Nephilim, and I think you say it a little different than me, so if I'm butchering it, please let me know. I'm sorry.
You could just say Nephilim.
Nephilim. I will get it.
The American way is Nephilim. I used to pronounce it Nephilim, but it's really Nephilim. That's you want to be correct, but anyway, works. Okay. Nephilim certainly works.
Awesome, because I think I heard that on a movie or something, and just kind of
and the Spanish version is Nephilitos.
So I do kind of want to go back to Moses and sorry, not Moses, Noah in that book. From the book I understand, that during the time of Noah there was an ancient grid system. Can you kind of explain the system and its purpose?
Yeah, I can. We found this extremely interesting when we were in Cusco, Peru. It's about 12,000 feet above sea level. Very European town, cobblestone streets, very quaint town. And we were there to see Sacsayhuaman and other sites. And Richard Shaw, my business partner and director-producer of the Watchers series, and I were walking home for dinner one night. It's about 9 o'clock at night, and we both had a cosmic download at the same time. And it was the idea, we had been looking at all these sites, and we were wondering, what's the connection here? What are we looking at? And at that point, we realized that, oh my gosh, there had been this ancient grid system which we believe covered the planet. And perhaps it started, the center of that grid might have been the Great Pyramid at Giza. But these sites are global, and we believe it was an energy grid, or a transportation grid, or a communication grid. And what blew us away, Shannon, and I wrote about this and have talked about this extensively. When we got this cosmic download, we were afraid to even tell anybody about it, because we realized that it was groundbreaking. And we realized that it dovetailed into biblical prophecy, because biblical prophecy talks about it'll be like the days of Noah. And if this grid existed in the days of Noah, then it's one more item that we can check off. And we believe that this grid exists now, and we're using this grid. It's called the World Wide Web and the satellite system that's over us. And before people start scoffing and rolling their eyeballs, all I have is to say you 3 letters, NSA. And I rest my case.
National
We are
Security
being
Agency.
spied on continually. The grid in antiquity, Shannon, was used to enslave the human race. The grid in modernity, the present day, is being used to enslave the human race. We're not quite there yet, but look at, in my opinion, Snowden is a hero. He's a whistleblower. He's a hero. Why are these guys spying on us? What's the point? Why do they have to monitor every email, every phone conversation, every Skype interview? There's no such thing as privacy anymore.
No.
And we are being spied on. The grid is back, and I find it abhorrent.
Yeah, and it's definitely, I would agree with you 100%. That it's definitely, a web dimensional kind of, an internet grid, so to speak. So next question, and I'm kind of ashamed to admit this considering like what I do currently, but I had never heard of an American Stonehenge, and can you just kind of take a moment, like, because I don't know if anybody was as much of an abyss as I was, but just to kind of explain what the American Stonehenge is and what it could have been utilized as.
Well, American Stonehenge is in a place called New Hampshire. And it's owned by the Stone family. A henge is a circle, and this is a stone henge. It's a circle made from slabs of stone. There is also a table there, a very large slab, which is used as a table for ritualistic offerings. Human sacrifices were done. Around the henge are standing stones. So let's say if this is the circle here, there's a standing stone here, which is the summer solstice. So if one stood in the middle of the circle and looked out to where the summer standing stone was, they would watch the summer sun, the longest day of the year, the summer sunrise of the longest day of the year come up over this stone like this. So let's say I'm the circle and here's the summer standing stone, right? Mm-hmm. They would see the sun come up over it like that. Pretty cool. Yeah. So what was interesting is Kelsey Stone, and this is his work, he gets all the credit. Kelsey Stone got on Google Earth and extended a line from the center of the henge out to that summer standing stone. But then he extended the line further and further and further. And to his absolute astonishment, and of course mine, and Scotty Walter of American Earth, where I saw the program, and that led me to contact Kelsey and do the interview and then go from there. Let me get a slurp here.
Okay.
He found that the stone, or that line, continued and intersected the center trilithon in Stonehenge, England. And that's not a coincidence. You can't do that in antiquity. You can do it today in modernity because you've got the satellites overhead. Mm-hmm. So you can triangulate things. But in antiquity, there's no way you can get a 3,000-mile piece of string and line it up. You can't do it.
Yeah.
So that points to an outside agency that is connecting this grid system. What's interesting is when Kelsey extended the line further, it winds up in Beirut, Lebanon. And Beirut, Lebanon is home of the Phoenicians. The Phoenicians were seafarers, but they are the descendants of the Canaanites. And the Canaanites, get this, were one of the Nephilim tribes that we read about in the Bible. Coincidence?
Imagine that. No, I don't think so.
Not.
I'm a firm believer of there's not too many like natural coincidences. That's
no, not like that.
So,
I got itchy eyes, excuse me, for all the viewers out there.
Y'all just, your admiration makes his eyes water, that's all. So, and you do have like quite an extensive following. I must say, I'm rather impressed of people, who support your work and support what you do, and follow what you do and your work. And it's just so astonishing to me that I'm not knocking Bigfoot people and things like that. I'm really not. I know the possibilities are out there. But that kind of work has no DNA evidence, nothing conclusive to even start to begin to back it up. But then you have work such as this that actually has DNA work being done and actual, scientific, something you can hold in your hand, evidence that is being done, and it's not like out there like cryptozoology.
Well, I want to clarify something. We don't have any DNA that we're working on. We're attempting to get that. We don't have that yet. We've got lots of pictures. We've weighed the skulls. We've looked at them. We've measured them. We found some extremely interesting medical abnormalities which shouldn't be there. We've had forensic anthropologists look at them, dentists look at them, doctors look at them, archaeologists look at them. But, of course, the kicker is getting the DNA evidence. We don't have that yet, and until we get it, we really can't go forward.
So what about these ones that were kind of found, in the Americas? What is the deal with those? Why? I mean, those are kind of like on home turf, kind of, right?
They are. There's one site which I'm not at liberty to talk about. I don't want to sound mysterious, but I've got to play my cards close to the vest. There is one site that we have been invited to, my team and I have been invited to, by a Native American chief who has jurisdiction over the land. The reason for this is he believes in his tribe's oral tradition that the bones of the giants are buried in these mounds. And whether or not we get permission to go and do this or not, we don't know. We're waiting, but that's what we're hoping for. Mm-hmm. And we will do a proper archaeological dig with our resident archaeologist, Aaron Judkins. And he'll be assisted by Joe Taylor, who will make casts of whatever we find in situ. Mm-hmm. And we will be able to take DNA evidence from that because it's in this country. It's on Native American property. We don't need to get permission. We're here. We already have the permission from the chief, so we can do that, to the best of my knowledge. And we're excited about that, but that's months away. And, that's why we're on the trail, not in our own trail.
Yeah, well, which I completely understand. But, my question to you is, if you have the permission from the chief and you do go about and you do these things, where does the American government play into all this? Because I know it's not going to just fall into the background.
Well, I mean, I don't... Look, the Darwinian paradigm is sacrosanct in academia and in the scientific community. It's what our kids are taught in school. And if we find evidence, and so far, I mean, I'm looking at pictures behind my Skype screen here, that in my opinion, overwhelmingly point to flaws in the Darwinian theory. So if Darwinism, which by the way is nothing more than a theory, is wrong, is not true, then what are we looking at? Why are they so afraid to show us the truth? And there's a reason for this. Because if it proves that the Nephilim were here, and it proves my theory that the Nephilim migrated out of the Levant or Israel and spread out over the earth, and were here in the Americas long before Native Americans or First Nation people were here, and built the places like we see the mounds in Ohio and other places. We're here out on the West Coast. We migrated across the Atlantic to South America. Now we're looking at something that's supernatural. Mm-hmm. And that's what the Darwinists never will go to. If you're a Darwinist and you believe in the supernatural, good luck. Doesn't work for you. Yeah. You're never going to get a job at a university or doing anything. Everything, the information is controlled by a group of elites who have created a paradigm, control the information in that paradigm, and then anyone like myself who tries to go up against that paradigm is shouted down, called all sorts of goofy names, laughed at. Meantime, I'm out in the field.
Yeah.
They're not. For the most part, they're not.
Well, it was so funny when you mentioned, the Darwin folks. I mean, and school children being taught. When we were taught, and still even to this day, most people I know will not believe that we had some type of evolution even remotely from a monkey or anything else of that nature.
Right.
You know, that's just not even what people are grasping anymore. I don't care what they're teaching. I'm telling you, people aren't grasping it. So, you know, to me, it's just kind of unrealistic to continue to hold on to such, you know, that type of revolution when it doesn't even play into the reality of our world anymore whatsoever, in my personal opinion.
Well, look, I would concur with that. Many people do not believe in evolution. It is but a theory. And I think if Darwin had known about the complexity of the deoxyribonucleic double helix spiral of life, the DNA molecular structure, I think he would have rescinded his theory. What we see is a model which actually reflects and supports the biblical paradigm, which tells us that everything will reproduce according to its kind. Now, you know, a sixth grader can get that.
Yeah.
What I mean, yeah. I mean, if a sixth grader can read that and go, oh, I get it. Dogs make dogs. They don't make hummingbirds.
Yeah.
Hummingbirds make hummingbirds. They don't create humpback whales.
Yeah.
And you see, all I know is that with the hundreds of thousands of species on this planet, just show me one which is changing into something else. Well, L.A., it takes millions. Baloney. Baloney. Surely there'd be one species who's in the process of evolving. But we don't see that. What we see is the same thing reproduced over and over and over again, unless an outside agency begins to meddle with the genome. Guess what? We're the outside agency right now, and we are meddling with the genome. Now we can create hybrid creatures that weren't there before. Think of Frankenfish. Think of goat's hair coming from, or spider's hair coming from, or spider's web being, the gene from a spider, which creates this web, being spliced into a goat. And so now the milk that comes out has that dynamic to it. Think of frogs that have been implanted with the gene that lights up a firefly. Now the frog lights up. These are all Frankensteinian type genetic mutations which were never supposed to be there. But we now have arrived at the point where we are playing God and genetically manipulating foods, GMO foods, animal life, plant life. It's not a good thing in my opinion. Sorry, it's not. We shouldn't be messing with that. We have no idea what we're doing.
Well, I think no one should play God. You know, I don't think it's our right to construct a destiny or fate. You know, if it's meant to happen, it'll happen. But that kind of leads me into the idea and the question. You know, when you're saying, you know, things are getting ready to spill over, you know, and, you know, as far as, you know, what's going on with everything. Okay, so could this spill over possibly be coming because we as, you know, human species have become so intelligent and, you know, started to push past the barriers of what we were supposed to?
No, in my opinion, it's not a question of spilling over. I just believe that history is about to reach a climax. We're seeing this pretty much everywhere. Look what happened in Kiev today. Look what's happening weather-wise in the Americas. The floods in England. Look at the animal fish die-off that we see. Look at the bizarre weather happening globally where temperature records are being smashed, you know, everywhere. Record snowfalls here in California, record drought. It hasn't rained. We're in big trouble here in this state, big trouble in this state. And people are going to lose a lot of plants, myself included. So we're into uncharted territory. And then you add to that the thousands of UFO sightings, which are being seen on a monthly basis. And we're not in Kansas anymore. What's interesting, the guidebook of the supernatural, Shannon, talks about all this stuff. It tells us our priority ahead of time, what will happen in the last days. Wars and rumors of wars, check. Famines, check. Pestilence, check. Earthquakes in diverse places, check. And troublesome times, check, 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 check. We're here. We're in this period of time which the guidebook warns us will be a sign of the last days. And I believe that we're going to watch it play out. And it's being played out. Look, UFO sightings in 1950, there was one in the month of December. Fast forward to 2014, almost 2,000 sightings. Surely we can agree that the phenomena is real, burgeoning, and not going away.
Yeah. And you know what's so funny that you even mentioned that, because I I'm going to be completely honest. You know, I've always, since I was a young child, been interested, you know, in the paranormal as far as spirits
Sure.
and things like that. But I always kind of thought UFO people were kind of quacky. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm putting it out there. I did think this. But it was actually when we were on the way back, you know, from a driving trip from Canada, and we were driving at a ridiculous hour where nobody should be back out on empty Wyoming roads. And I had a sighting, and people, thought, still to this day, if I tell anybody, they think I'm crazy, and I know I'm sure as hell not crazy because I know exactly what me and my husband both saw. And I was the person thinking these other people were quacky. So I mean, you know, I think there's a lot of validity to a lot of this stuff that, you know, a lot of people are putting out there, and especially like the frequency of it. And so many people are saying, "Oh, the veil is thinning, the veil is thinning," but why? Why is the veil thinning? What's going on? What's different? You know, and that's what I like, is that you're offering something that, you know, you're not just saying, "Oh, it is." You're kind of offering an idea of what it could be.
Well, the veil is thinning. We are in a battle, a battle which has been going on, like I said, literally for millennia, and it's for the souls of men and women. I mean, it is. Look, you think that Katy Perry stands up at the Grammy Awards and does what she does? You don't think that that's deliberate? Or Beyonce or Nicki Minaj or any of these people? It is absolutely deliberate. Look at the junk that Miley Cyrus is putting out.
Oh my Jesus!
These women are groomed. They are groomed to do what they do. They have handlers. They are in control, and it's very extremely deliberate. I have one person in the music industry who's sort of my mole, and this person tells me stuff that goes on, and it's like, you've got to be kidding me. There is open satanic worship in the music industry. It has been completely taken over, and the videos and what's talked about is evident of it. And think about it. One video affects millions and millions of kids and millions of people. And it's spreading. The darkness is spreading. The occult is spreading. And so guys like me and my colleagues like Russ Dizdar and others, Gary Stearman on Prophecy of the News, you know, we stand in the gap. And we say, no, this is not right. This is dark. This is left-hand path. This is stuff you don't want to get involved in. But again, the day is coming where this battle is going to take place on this planet when Yeshua pops through with the host of heaven and finally puts an end to the system that human beings have been enslaved under for thousands of years.
Yeah. And I do, I kind of need you to kind of do me a favor just to clarify, because we have a couple of people in the chat room that are just a little bit confused. And I guess it's just because maybe they haven't seen how you've illustrated how, you know, satanic and angelic and all this fit into your ideology of what you believe, you know, the interdimensional kind of stuff is. That they're just kind of not seeing how that all fits in together, like within Christianity, I guess.
Well, it's very simple. We are told that there are these dark, malevolent forces. There's a satanic agenda. There are Luciferians. There are people that literally practice the left-hand path. There are disembodied spirits of a Nephilim, known as demons, which float around the earth. They need bodies to inhabit. They need to possess bodies in order to manifest in this dimension. These are the fallen angelic hosts. When I say angel, it's a misnomer. Look, these entities are highly intelligent, extremely powerful. They're not some little cherubic thing with wings going like this. It's not what we're looking at. And we don't even know, we're down like the 8-minute mark or whatever. We don't have time to get into a whole theological discussion on the angelic hosts. But I will tell you this. Anytime even the good guys show up, most people do a face plant. It short circuits us. We can't stand in the presence of these beings, whether they're fallen or good. They are have incredible energy to them. I can't stress that enough. You know, this is not a game. It's not a game. People think it's a game. It's not a game. This thing is happening around us. Look, go back 50 years. Anybody know about implants? Anybody know about elongated skulls? No. Nobody talked about any of this stuff. Now it's like, here we are on Skype, right? And thousands and thousands of people are hearing this information. You know, how many people knew about demonic possession? How many people channeled 50 years ago? A handful of people worldwide? Now it's rampant. How many psychics were in America? There were none. Now they're in every city across from coast to coast. The neighborhood psychic, little sign psychic available, right? I mean, are you telling me there's an occult explosion and people don't know what they're getting into? They're often led down a path. Whoa, I got power. Whoa, I can see this. Whoa, I can do that. Where's the source of the power coming from? And unless a person knows how to test the spirits, they can be so easily deceived. Hope that makes sense.
Absolutely. So in our last, little bit here, I do want to give you an opportunity, and I'd love for you to, talk about, I know you kind of mentioned, Watchers 8 and a couple of other things, but just to kind of mention what you have coming up and what our viewers can kind of expect coming from you, here in the near future.
Well, we're going to be doing On the Trail of the Nephilim, Volume 2, which has many pictures of sites that I have been and uncovered and looked at. These are groundbreaking pictures. They have never been published before. No one, frankly, has seen them. That's because I'm not in an armchair. I'm out in the field literally digging this stuff up. I don't mean with a shovel, but I mean in the archives. And some of this stuff has just been squirreled away for almost 100 years. And so On the Trail of the Nephilim will show this. Watchers 8, we actually show the removal of an implant in a surgical theater from a man. You can be looking at that. Startling UFO footage. Dr. Lear will be once again weighing in on what we're seeing. Jaime Maussan, just different people. We're going to try to tie in what these ancient megalithic structures that were all over the world. Some of these stones weigh like over 100 tons. How the heck were they moved? And we're going to show that there's a link between what happened then and what's happening by some eyewitnesses in reporting the same type of phenomena with UFOs. So we'll hope to establish a link between the two. So that's what's going on. In the meantime, if you don't have any of the Watchers, my gosh, go get Watchers 6 and 7, save some money. We got both of these things in one packet, Watchers 6 and 7. You can go to my website, lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net, and avail yourself of that. Let me see if I have one here.
And the website is up on your screen while he's looking for that, and it's been up on your screen all night. It is currently below Mr. Marzulli, but once again, it is www.lamarzulli.net.
And that's what Watchers 6 and 7 look like. So it's you can save some money because both of these DVDs are in the same box, and I promise you will not be disappointed. We have sold many of these, and people are holding Watchers parties across the country. They invite all their friends over, and they sit down and they watch this stuff, and then the heated conversations begin.
Yeah. And it has to be like an intellectually challenging type of person, though, who's going to actually enjoy, who's not like dead set in their little clone ways, as I would consider it. So, because you can't have heated conversation and good conversation with somebody that's like, a drone and set in their ways.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to wake people up. It's going to get people talking, and that's the whole purpose of making this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Marzulli, for being on this evening. And
thanks, Shannon.
Thank you. And hope when Watchers 8 comes out, I would love to have you back on because I want you to talk about more details about this thing that came out. So I would definitely enjoy that.
Sounds good.
For our viewers, once again, Mr. Marzulli's web address is up on your screen. You can get his books and his movies from this web address. And he's doing a cute little symbol.
Live long and prosper.
There we go. Isn't that like Star Trek? I'm such a dork because I don't know this stuff, I'm sure.
That is, absolutely.
But it's www.lamarzulli.net. And for tonight, we will sign off with playing a preview of Mr. Marzulli's movie. This is kind of like a trailer to kind of show you the work that he does. But once again, Mr. Marzulli, thank you so much for being on.
Thanks, Shannon. Appreciate it.
And everybody, stay tuned for this little short clip.
Could there be a singular answer to the mysteries of megalithic structures around the world?
Is there a pattern, a construction method, or a clue left by these ancient builders, a thread of evidence that wraps around the world? Could they have been creating a network of power centers that we are only discovering today? Evidence continues to emerge that there once was an ancient civilization that built tremendous structures here. Apparently, many were giants, and most of the bones that were collected over the centuries have been lost to us, whether accidental or intentionally. In fact, we are often prevented from even reading ledgers about their discovery, even though they were routinely reported in many newspaper articles in the 1800s. But if we still could find one more spot, one special location where unspoiled evidence could be examined, then that place had to be found. We discovered that the only place we could go was Peru.
Well, you just kind of got a taste of what Mr. Marzulli does. And that's Watcher 6, but there's also Watcher 7 after that, and there's a bunch before that too. So a great series to sit down and watch and talk about with your friends of the paranormal or those that you just like to piss off. Next week on Paranormal Minds, I'll be talking with Jodie Foster. She's been on previously, but her daughter's going to be with her as well this time. And they're going to be talking about The Forgotten Burial, which was recently released, like here in the past month, I believe it was. So be sure to tune in back here next week. Same time, same place. Don't miss it. You guys have a great week, and I'll see you next week.